You ready?
Ready.
Good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your favorite podcast. You know the name. And on today's podcast, we got this is gonna be a different one, y'all. But woo 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 woo.
Yeah.
You can't forget the singing, Mike. Would you like some singing, Mike?
Let's get it. Gonna be a long, long time. Gonna be a long, long time.
What words are these?
Come on, we got an aerospace song. Rocket Man.
My goddamn singing, Mike. Woo woo woo! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Everybody, this is Dickstein. Okay, you're too nerdy for this. All right, here we go. All right, we're done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Riffin with Griffin, like I said, and today's guest is out there. It's not a comedian. It's not an actor. This guy is an astronaut in training, right?
Correct. Prospective astronaut.
Prospective astronaut. Just all around. Just he's a good dude, nerdy, rugged nerd.
That's right.
Give it up for the smartest dude that's ever been in my place on Riffin with Griffin.
I don't know about that. You guys are
Probably the smartest dude on Riffin with Griffin. Give it up for Mr. Dickstein.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say this. You're the first guest to actually email me. Like, he emailed me this, Riffin with Griffin, future astronaut Dylan Dickstein, possible talking points. Possible talking points and background info.
And use it, don't use it, whatever you want. It's there for you if you want it.
Oh, so this is just in case I need it, huh?
Yeah, if you don't want it, throw it out the door.
No, it was like it's actually very interesting. So actually, let me just give some background to the. I'm gonna go to this. Actually, this is good stuff. But the first thing is I met Dylan on Logan Paul's podcast when I was at the podcast, and then you were sitting there and you were like, what do you do? And you were like, oh yeah, well, I want to go to Mars. And I was like, what do you mean you want to go to Mars? Then we just started talking, and I thought, my God, I got to have this person on my podcast just to talk about this stuff. But first, let me ask you this. Do you think nerd is a derogatory term?
Is
it the other N word?
It definitely is more mild than dweeb, something like that, right?
Oh.
Like that definitely has a negative connotation.
Okay.
Although nerd is becoming in fashion. I feel like you're seeing shirts that say be nice to nerds, they'll be your boss one day.
Right.
So I think as long as you have a good outlook, then it's not too bad.
It does seem one of the softer of the make fun of people words, I guess, if that's the right term. Because I don't necessarily, it can be derogatory, I guess, in how it's used. But even though all these words can be like that, but for some reason, nerd is like right in the middle.
Right.
Because a lot of times, I'm sure, like, how often do you get called a nerd?
Honestly, I think you were the first since high school.
Lying motherfucker.
Well, keep in mind, like, where I'm at UCLA doing my PhD.
Oh, that's right. So you're around a lot of
nerds. And so, you can't just call everyone a nerd. It's going to get kind of boring.
You're not passing by the biology lab with the basketball players, and they're like, look at these nerds.
Exactly.
Here. Okay, all right. So then that's on me then. That's on me.
But rugged, though, that makes it all better.
Well, you're not an atypical nerd. You're not like...
You're right. I'm not sure what what the image of nerd is, but I'd like to think I am more sociable than you.
Yeah. Well, no, but I just think it's about it's like this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? That you actually typed. I thought this was something you had ready, but then I looked at it and I thought, oh no, he actually took time. Guys, this is almost 3 pages that he wrote. To be like, hey, this is some stuff you might possibly want to talk about. But, I remember the first thing we talked about was like, you wanted to go to, you're talking about you want to go to Mars. And it's like, why should we go to Mars?
Right. We need a plan B, essentially. And it's only the next step in terms of our exploration as a humanity.
Okay, why do you say we need a plan B? Well, what's plan A? Are you saying like plan A is Earth and we're fucking that up and now it's like we need to go to someplace else?
I mean, it's not a matter of imminence, but yeah, it's humanity has done way too much for us just to let natural selection take us away, or artificial selection eventually if things go south here on Earth. We have an opportunity to go to another body and become a multiplanetary species, and that's just the next progression for intelligent life. And Mars is not a low hanging fruit, but it's possible.
Yeah, but isn't Mars the way it is right now what we think the Earth is, what we're going to do to the Earth? So why would we start there when we should just do it here?
You're saying, is there right in terms of like messing up the Earth how we did? Like, why would we want to do that to a different planet?
No, I'm saying Mars is already messed up. There's no water. It's desolate. It looks like a desert. It's crazy. No one lives there. There's no life, apparently. And so we want to go there and start from scratch when we could still salvage this one.
Keep in mind, though, Earth is a gem. We are 1 in a billion. There are other planets like us somewhere else. They're just very, very far away.
Oh.
Mars is in our reach. It's about 1.5 times as far as the sun is from us, and the sun is relatively close. And so the fact that we have this red rock sitting right there, and it has some potential of being habitable with the right engineering, makes it something worth fighting for.
Huh. I that's so interesting that you say that. I mean, I don't know, man. I just think like how far away realistically are we from being on Mars?
I think we talked about this a little bit on an Impaulsive, but 2034 is the year that I'm saying first boots on Mars, and that mission will be as simplistic and short-lived as it can possibly be. It's not short. It's a 26-month mission in total. That's just how long it takes for Earth and Mars to align. But when you say that in terms of align, you're saying like it's not like we could just go into space and then the GPS is like turn right here. Right, exactly.
And then we just go, okay, so does that mean that sounds like a limitation in space technology then?
It's actually kind of wild. This is pretty counterintuitive for most people, but the way you travel from body to body in space is super different than anything we see on Earth.
Oh, really?
If you take a left, hypothetically, in space, the amount of energy you're doing to do that is insane. You actually travel in arcs, like ellipses and hyperbolas.
What? Okay. Like I'm gonna have to have like some stuff on the screen to explain what the hell this dude is talking about. Dude, you need to dumb this shit down. What do you? So you're saying that the space shuttle can't just go into space and we just go, okay, let's turn and it goes like direct, like the GPS points towards, or we can see it on the screen. Oh look, isn't that Mars? And we can't.
No left turns.
No left turns. So it's not like the space shuttle takes off. As soon as it hits the atmosphere, out of the atmosphere, it can't just like you can't just look in the on the display and be like, oh, let's go this way. Like make a left. We can't just use Waze.
Right. If Siri tries to tell you to take a left, you're about to use all your fuel.
Really? Now, why is that?
Right. The way ultimately you're going really fast relative to how anything you're dealing with on Earth. When you are in a car and you're going 65 miles per hour on the freeway, it's actually pretty easy to get down to a standstill, right? You just put on the brake, and then if you need to change lanes, no problem.
Wait, but okay, let me step in while you're talking about this so I can wrap my brain around it. Okay, so, because I get what you're saying, because if you're going 65 miles per hour, even at 65 miles per hour, you can't make a left.
Correct. Exactly.
Like if you're on the street and you're going 65 miles per hour, you got to get down to 30 to make a proper left anyway. It's not like you hitting that turn at 65, like, because even if at 40 or so, sometimes your car might go, okay, all right, I'm starting to understand.
Nice.
Go on.
And like just for scaling, planes go about 10 times as fast as cars. Rockets go between 10 and 20 or 30 times as fast as planes.
Oh wow!
And so the kind of like that idea of like skidding out it requires just lots of energy, and when you have only so much fuel and no gas stations in space, you don't want to be making any left turns.
So when the rocket is launching from Earth, it's pretty much they've figured out mathematically by the time it hits outside the atmosphere, this is already a straight line to where we're going.
It's an arc. It's okay making like smooth arcs just because the distance is so large.
I get what you're saying. Okay.
But yeah, essentially you can't just like come to a stop and turn.
Oh, okay. Now, all right. So they had the guys, because the space station is like up there right now.
Right. It's you can actually see it at night. I'm not sure if have you seen it?
No,
live?
I have never thought to look for it at night.
We'll look at it for at one point.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. Okay, this is
amazing.
gonna be great. I'm gonna do a little video about that. But there was that one guy that was living up there, and then his body started to deteriorate.
Yeah, Scott Kelly,
which told me we're not ready to be in space.
I mean, keep in mind that the part of the job of being an astronaut is you are a test specimen. Uh-huh. You're a lab rat in a way. You're conducting experiments for NASA and for anyone else on the Earth who wants to test things in microgravity. But all these experiments are also being done on you. Any physiological experiment that would test our readiness to live in space or to colonize a different body.
But isn't the colonizing, that's a whole other thing. What we're talking about right now is the trip there.
Right. No, you're right.
Right.
And so, yeah, people. Scott Kelly spent about a year in space, and he came back and had lots of issues. His legs swole, and
wasn't his body completely different?
You go through different things when you're in space. He got 1 inch taller, which is funny because he's a twin, so he was actually taller than his twin for a little while.
Now, let me ask you this: Did they use him because he had a twin, so they can actually be like, let's see the differences?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did they study his twin too? Did they bring his twin in and go like, okay, let's take some tests of both of you, and then send him up? And when you come back, we're going to be like, whoa, look at these differences.
100%.
Wow.
I mean, Scott and Mark Kelly are both very talented individuals, and it remains to be seen whether they would have been selected to be astronauts on their own. Uh-huh. Maybe. But certainly as twins, that was a very compelling case for NASA because they were able to send one of them, namely Scott, to space for a long time and then have Mark on the ground and then have a direct comparison. You
said it like in Hollywood, you have like a baby on a movie set.
Right.
They usually have twins because you can use one or the other, but it doesn't mean they're the best actors.
That's funny. I mean, no disrespect to Mark and Scott Kelly, but
you threw a little shade. You're like, I don't know if these guys can be astronauts, but they're great twins.
That's so funny.
But so would you sign up for something like that? Would you be gung ho to be experimented on to see what happens to your body in space?
Anyone who would say no to that is not ready to be an astronaut.
Oh man, he's putting it out there. Challenge accepted.
It is. I mean, that's part of the job description. You need to be able to be an experimenter doing more like lab-based experiments for NASA, but you also need to be able to be a big test specimen and be one of the few examples that are actually understanding what microgravity will do to your body. And quite literally, you will be challenged every day and, and monitored.
And you seem to be like, you're gung ho for that. You're ready for that.
I think I have the right makeup. There aren't, fortunately for my job prospects, there aren't a lot of people that are really ready for something like that. But I happen to continue to kind of pave that path.
Okay, we're gonna circle back to that. So I want to get back to what we were talking about that I feel we're not ready for space travel.
Sure.
So this guy is living up there for a year. His body deteriorates. Why?
Yeah, when you are on the International Space Station, you are in something called microgravity. Mm-hmm. It's not called 0G. You do have some very small forces from the International Space Station not being in a perfect orbit, but effectively you're in zero gravity, and suddenly you don't need your legs as much, right?
Oh, gotcha.
When we're walking around as bipedal species, we're putting a lot of force on our legs, exactly our weight.
So was he not exercising up there, or is that a thing?
You exercise a lot, actually.
So do you think he wasn't exercising?
Oh, he was.
Okay.
The issue is, even when we're sleeping, we're exercising in a way because we're putting some weight
Oh,
right?
you're right. Wow. Jesus, this guy's okay.
Right, and let alone walking or running. We can talk about this later, but I'm running a marathon in a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
So that puts a lot of strain on your body that you wouldn't otherwise feel in space.
Okay. Even when you're exercising, you're not because you're right, because part of the exercising the what is that? The resistance that gravity is putting on you is helping you exercise. So you have to exercise actually twice as much to get the same workout.
Pretty much.
Oh, look at me. Ah.
Yeah, there you go. We're figuring stuff out.
Yeah, figuring it out right now.
Because imagine you're at the gym and you're about to do a squat, right? A lot of people, when they're first starting out...
It's hard for me to imagine that.
Oh, come on. You're a strong guy.
He just called me fat on my podcast.
What are you talking about?
You said, imagine you're doing it. I'm only teasing, but go on. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't use weights, right?
Uh-huh.
They're just using their body weight when they're doing a squat.
But that's what like yoga and like those calisthenic exercises where you're like, you're doing all you're doing all that kind of nonsense. Right. That's you're using your body weight.
Exactly.
Okay.
And besides the flexibility advantages of those sorts of exercises, you really need your body weight to do the work. You don't have that in space. And so
there's no core workout.
Suddenly you have to be contorting yourself in different ways and getting assistance from machines to actually get the same workout.
Oh, wow.
And so they do actually have machines for this. Like they have one treadmill in the International Space Station, and you actually are hooked down into it, and so it pretends like you're using some sort of downward force.
Okay, I have so many questions, and guys, I'm not cutting him off. Okay, I'm just asking more questions within the questions. All right, so because some people are like, let him answer. But, okay,
we'll get there.
Sci-fi movies. Okay, a lot of it is obviously it's just science fiction. But it is based off, like, people thinking that hopefully technology will get to this point. All right?
Totally.
All right. So when you're watching this, there's always some sort of fake gravity. Like every space movie, the what do you call it? The design of a spaceship. There's some circular thing that's on it, and it's moving like this on the space, and that usually in our minds is like, oh, that's what's creating the gravity.
You're right.
Okay,
you're totally right.
All right. So why aren't they doing that on the space station? Like, why come we don't have artificial gravity to help with this problem?
Because there are easier solutions that don't look as Hollywood.
Okay.
If you just rotate the space shuttle this way, you can do the same thing.
Oh, really?
So you don't need a giant wheel. It also, moving parts are difficult for reliability. If it breaks, you're messed up. That's it.
And then in space too, it doesn't matter. There's no up, there's no down, because so it could just spin as long as because if you're on the thing and it's going like this, you're always going to feel like you're standing up, right?
Exactly. It's called normal force, and that's what effectively we feel as our gravity.
Okay. So why isn't there artificial gravity on the space station? Like why didn't they do that? Will that solve the problem is what I'm asking too.
I think part of the design for the International Space Station is to try to get our astronauts or our physiological test specimens to experience as much pure space travel as possible.
Gotcha.
And if we're essentially faking it by assisting them into experiencing something more similar to Earth, we've cut our science in half.
I totally get what you mean. So then also they're not going to have gravity there also because they're doing like medical experiments in space too to see if no gravity will help with like curing cancer or right?
The issues that Scott Kelly went through are horrible for him temporarily, but ultimately it's very beneficial for science.
How is he now?
He's fine. He's back. It took him a few months.
Oh, so you can recover from these things that happen.
Yes,
Did he
absolutely.
shrink?
There are a few things that are permanent. It mostly related to eyesight.
Oh no!
Your eyes actually elongate a little bit in microgravity, and so typically your vision is slightly worse after you come back. And
theory, maybe like if aliens came from long distances, do you think that the microgravity has changed their body in a way that's why they maybe they started off in a humanoid, and then from this long space travel, their eyes got big, their legs got swollen, and then they come and they look. Well, this sounds like a good plot for a movie.
Yeah, we need to pitch this just next door.
Because all right, what am I really asking? Like, so what when are we going to be able then to travel 26 months in space and it not have these crazy effects on the body? Because when you get there, you're going to have a lot to do, and how you're going to be sick.
Right. And there are other ways of getting sick too from the radiation.
You talked about that.
Right.
Talk about the radiation.
Sure.
Tell us about that.
Earth is a beautiful thing. We are very well made for Earth, because if you stand out in the sun too long, you're going to get a suntan.
Right.
And if you eat a little bit longer, you'll get a sunburn. And then if you do that for years, you might, you increase your chances of cancer.
Right. You're saying even on Earth, the radiation is dangerous.
Right. And we have this beautiful thing called the ozone layer, which is very important, and we need to protect it. And that keeps us from getting those radiative effects quicker. Places like the moon, for instance, or Mars have very, very little atmosphere, and they practically have no ozone layer. So the idea of getting a suntan happens almost instantaneously without the right protection.
Okay. While you're in space.
Right. For instance, if you don't have a protection around your spaceship or a spacesuit, you're exposed to that radiation directly, and that can be horrible.
So it's not even just because, like, whenever, because all my knowledge is just dumb space movies,
which is good though. I think honestly the movies do a fantastic job. There are some that miss the mark, but
this part you're talking about though, they never acknowledge in space. My movie experience is always when you're in space, you freeze. Like they always you know what I mean? They always say if the person takes their helmet off and then they just instantly freeze. Is that true?
Oh, that's one of the most interesting things to me about space. And I think it took me actually until college to learn this one, but as morbid as it is, the way you die if your spacesuit comes off is multi-step, and you don't die right away.
Oh, really?
It's the biggest the first thing that hits you is the pressure differential. You essentially get
got you.
It's as if a vacuum comes at you at every orifice, and you essentially are removed of everything liquid. So, namely, everything inside here.
Oh, Jesus.
It's
because we're like 80% water, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
60%, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of water, a lot of organs that are easily accessible through the mouth and ears and nose. And essentially, all that has to come out. And so you are typically alive for a few seconds before you lose enough blood to pass out and die.
Oh,
but
but
it's a horrible death.
Well, you think?
Clearly, yeah.
all your liquids get sucked out of your body. That's not top 5 horrible deaths.
Right. And then after that's all done, then you freeze.
Oh shit. Okay. All right. So the radiation is an issue. So then if we're going to space travel, we're worried about zero gravity on the body.
And so just a couple more notes on that.
Okay, go.
You're because you are now lighter, effectively. It's as if you're in a baby's body. You imagine like you have a 15-pound infant. That becomes you. You are as you feel like effectively like you're this big infant, and suddenly your body's like, well, why do I need calves this size, and why do I need arms this large?
Oh, got you.
Everything starts to shrink.
So you're saying there's like a quick evolution.
Exactly.
Like an instant evolution.
Right. It's as if your body says, well, no longer am I X pounds, I'm actually like 15, 20 pounds.
Right.
And what happens is your heart starts to shrink because you don't need it. You don't need as much to pump blood. Also your bones also become more narrow. And so you have this weakening essentially of your entire skeleton, but your body says it's okay because you are lighter. You're effectively lighter.
Right. So if you were born in space and you lived to like how old are you?
I'm 25.
If you were born in space and you lived in space till you were 25, if we brought you to Earth, you wouldn't even be able to handle it, huh?
It would be a challenge.
Right?
You would instantly have to go into a wheelchair. And that's actually what they do with astronauts when they come back from long missions. You are mandated to go into a wheelchair for a little bit and go into rehab because your bones don't want to. You're much more fragile and you can fracture things very easily.
And this is worth it to you?
Absolutely.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so now we're worried about what happens to the body. We're worried about the radiation, and we haven't even got to our destination yet.
Exactly. This is not. I mean, these are. Some people ask, like, how come we haven't gone back to the moon? How come we haven't gone to Mars? It's been decades.
Yeah,
but we're kind of starting to understand the reasons. It's not easy.
It's not easy. Do you think knowing the level of technology of like the Apollo missions, do you look at that now and be like, is it more amazing to think about what they did now because of how advanced technology is now?
I definitely take that stance. I think a lot of people are a little bit more critical or negative and like, how come we haven't done more since then? But honestly, it was amazing we got there when we did, because
ignorance is bliss, apparently, huh?
it's like, I mean, the fact that we have Buzz Aldrin alive today and he's able to share stories of him walking on the moon is unbelievable.
If you believe that really happened, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you're certain that we went to the moon.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you've worked for NASA, you've worked for SpaceX.
I've also worked for Virgin Galactic.
I didn't even know about what Virgin Galactic is. That the competitor to SpaceX?
Not exactly. Richard Branson is the chairman of Virgin Galactic, and they, along with a company called Blue Origin, which Jeff Bezos owns, are trying to send people like you and me, but for a lot of money, to visit space for short periods of time.
Just for recreational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for enjoyment.
So do you think the future of space travel and space technology will be in the hands of the private sector? For it to advance to the level that we want to get to, for the science fiction movie version of what space travel should be or could be? It
definitely looks that way, but not alone. Like, we still need some sort of input from NASA. Like, SpaceX and Blue Origin, other organizations like this, would agree that places like NASA are really needed to keep the funding alive and the dreams alive.
Right.
But certainly places like SpaceX are putting in most of the effort and making the most headway.
Yeah, they are. I love looking at SpaceX stuff. Like I saw, you even got me a little hat, right? He brought me a hat. Yeah, look at this. I got my little SpaceX hat now.
Enjoy.
Yes, thank you. Like that reusable rocket thing. I was following that for a while, but it's so crazy, like how excited everybody was that rocket landed again. But it's like, so where is the technology right now of spaceships? Like, how far are we away from like either it being docked at a space station or being able to just take off from Earth and then whoosh, like X-Men, we have like the shape of a plane is for Earth, but it doesn't necessarily work in space.
Right, exactly, because Earth has atmosphere, a plane has wings, because we can sit on the air. Right. In space, you don't have that. You have to use your engines to actually to maneuver.
Right.
And but in terms of time, I think we're within years of seeing actual finished architectures that are ready for places like Mars.
Oh, you mean the thing where like it takes off from Earth and then or whatever, and then it can land on Mars and then take off from Mars and come back?
Right. We won't see that mission, I don't believe, until the 30s, but in the 20s, I'm pretty certain that we're at the pace where we'll actually see the vehicles that are ready to do this mission being tested in full.
And what are those aircraft going to look like? What do you think they're going to look like? Can they look like anything? Can they just, are they going to be, is there certain shapes that's conducive for space travel more than, what we think? Like, is it circular? Is it like a box? Does it still have to be aerodynamic? Like what is the best shape for travel?
There really are two big phases of flight that you have to design for: leaving an atmospheric body, namely Earth. Because we have atmosphere, you can't just design a bus. Right.
A Greyhound's not gonna
exactly.
So it has to be aerodynamic.
Okay. But once you leave the atmosphere, it really doesn't have to be. You can be a cube if you wanted it to. In fact, a lot of satellites, because they spend their life in space alone, our cubicle.
Well, then do you think that when we start the travel, that the ship to go up to the space station is going to be aerodynamic, but whatever the ship is that's going to be traveling to Mars is going to be, because like you're not going to be 26 months in a cockpit, right? It's going to have to be something that like you could get in, sort of roam around.
You're right.
Do you think?
No, you're right. And I'm also speaking from the knowledge that we do have these architectures already designed. These spacecraft are pretty much done.
Oh, they're ready to go.
There's one through SpaceX called Starship, and there's one through NASA called SLS, or Space Launch System, and these are two different designs that are ready to take us to Mars. And SpaceX, at least right now, is actively testing their vehicle.
But they have to build it in space, right?
It's built actually in Florida and Texas.
Oh, well, how are they going to get it to space?
It has many large engines called Raptor attached to the bottom of it, and essentially it propels itself just into space.
Oh,
and
so we actually can take off from Earth with an intact spaceship and get it to space, or is it still going to have those kind of rockets that help it, and then they break off?
It does go in stages. The first stage is predominantly fuel. And so once we burn out of that fuel, that stage falls away, and then you're left with essentially the Greyhound bus, which is a spaceship that is it's astronaut ready, such that it's no 5-star hotel.
Right. But you're not going for that.
Exactly. But you're also
there's no room service on the
right. You're crazy. You're like, where's airplane mode?
Yeah.
By the way, I want to get to this later. You played a pilot. I am a pilot. So
so you want to fly? Wait. All astronauts have to be able to do everything, right?
Exactly.
There's not like a science team. Even the science guy, like the guy that's like the agriculture guy, he's got to know how to fly, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and essentially, but keep in mind though that that aerodynamic part doesn't completely go away just because you left Earth. Because two things: you have to land on Mars and you have to come back to Earth.
Okay. Well, true. Okay. So, all right. Going to Mars though, like what are they're trying to like terraform Mars, right? Isn't that like, like from like the movie Aliens, they have this big atmosphere thing,
right?
Like isn't that something that we should be thinking about doing now before we even send the thing over there? Like, aren't they trying to like send like, missiles and have to blow the place up, or what's that whole thing?
Okay, so you're
I'm not saying it right, but you can.
No, but like, and it's awesome though. Like, I feel like that should be like common knowledge, but unfortunately, it's not. Yeah. There are teams at NASA, SpaceX, and other companies as well that are working on working toward these solutions, trying to find ways of.
Quick question though about that: are they working together at all, or is this like we're gonna? It's like we're trying to do this on our own. Is there like a space race amongst those companies?
The space race would be from private company to private company, but a lot of that is trying to get government dollars for funding. NASA, they're going to pick sides with whoever they believe the most, but they'll likely, or they are also hedging their bets by funding multiple companies as well. But
who's in the lead, do you think?
As far as private companies go, in terms of getting us to Mars, SpaceX is the leader. But NASA independently is making quite a bit of headway with SLS.
I know we got off track here, but this is so interesting to me. Are the companies fighting for young minds like yourself?
It's not a bad environment to be an aerospace engineering student right now. Yeah, absolutely. The
recruiting must be like, you come to SpaceX, come to Gap, what the other one is.
Virgin
No,
Galactic,
come to NASA. Is there recruiting like, heavy?
We're definitely seeing a reemergence. It seemed like there were a generation that was it was less desirable to be an aerospace engineering student. Like it was in the 60s, 70s,
right.
Even the 80s with the space shuttle development program. It took some time off, and we're definitely seeing that come back again. So absolutely, there are companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, many others that are trying to get people who have studied this.
I was gonna say, like, I never hear too many people say, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. That used to be a thing, but there seems to be more movies coming on right now. Like I love The Martian.
Me too.
I love that movie.
Mark Watney's great.
Yeah, and just the book is great. You know what I mean? I got the audiobook and I watched the movie because once I saw the movie, I was like, oh, I want to. And it's so techie, that book.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so techie, which gave it some authenticity. You know what I mean? And I really enjoyed that about the book. And I thought, wow, like how far away we are from that kind of thing. You know, so that's why I had you on, because I loved how you were talking about it and your interest in being like one of the first people to go to Mars.
And timing works out decently well too. If we take my prediction as fact, which 2034, let's say that's the year that humans step foot on Mars. We want those individuals to be in their probably late 30s, early 40s. Why? We want people that are a little bit seasoned as far as astronauts in training. Maybe they've been to space a couple of times. And by the way, typically astronauts are selected in their late 20s, early 30s. And so someone in their late 30s, early 40s will have had some experience. And those are likely going to be the age of individuals sent on that first mission. And so since 2034 is 15 years from now, you know,
you'll be 40 something years old.
So we're talking about people today in their mid 20s.
Wow.
And I'm 20.
Okay. So this is your dream. This is your goal. You know, this is
exactly.
like, you're like, I have to do this. How close are you to actually just going to space just on like a random mission?
So NASA sends out their applications every 4 years right now. It used to be every year, but lately it's been every 4 years. And the last one was three years ago. So it's looking like something around next summer is when there'll be a national announcement. You'll hear it on every news station saying NASA is seeking astronauts. And people like myself will, who are taking it very seriously, will reach out to the right people and apply. And
so you're moving and shaking right now. You're building relationships. You're trying to be the one to be like, hey, I want to pick me, right?
You can imagine there's a lot of competition.
Of course.
And fortunately, most of the people who do end up applying to be an astronaut are not really in the running. These are people who maybe have wanted to be an astronaut for a long time, but maybe don't understand what the job really entails. But there are hundreds, I would say, of individuals who are vying for a dozen spots.
Oh, wow. Damn. So wow, that's a lot. Like that's so I mean, this seems like a dumb question, but you'd be hugely disappointed if you never get to go to space then.
I'm pretty sure I'll go to space in my lifetime. Whether I'll work in space as a NASA astronaut, that remains to be seen. That would be preferred, but they actually do have opportunities now where you can even send your ashes to space for a couple $1,00000. So
really,
anyone can get to space, and whether they're alive or dead.
I'm gonna end up at space.
Yeah, I will be in space at some point. My ashes will, at least, but of course, I would prefer to work there.
Okay, so let's get back to terraforming Mars.
Yep.
Okay, so how would they go about this? And do you think that that's something that should be started before we do even get there? And is that even possible?
We talked about this a little bit on Impaulsive, but like the first couple missions, even the first few missions, will really be: can we do this? Is this possible with our current technology? And what is it doing to our humans? And so that handful of people who will go on whatever vehicle takes us there. And by the way, it will be a two-way mission. There was a proposal for a one-way mission. That's more on the era of science fiction. But
one-way mission meaning like these people are going to go and then they're going to die.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And there are individuals out there who believe they're selected for that one-way trip, but it will never happen.
Right. We wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. But let's say in the 2030s we go on this two-way mission. The first few times we do this, by the way, I mentioned they're 26-month cycles.
Right.
So even if we go a few times, it's going to take 7 years to complete, just a few missions. But,
you're right. Or 7 year.
So even in a whole decade, we've gone there four times. So maybe 20 people have been there. And by that point, let's say after a decade of successes, granted we're making progress. And
so you're saying just even flying to Mars, getting there, and just turning right back around, that would be a huge success.
It would be the nominal mission, right? That's the reasonable goal. We won't go until we believe that it is going to be the likely outcome, but it certainly will be celebrated. The people
in the science world,
absolutely, like the amount of understanding we'll get from that first mission will be incredible, and those individuals will become heroes.
Well, would they on that first mission? Would they go with the idea of landing on Mars?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but okay. How about this? What about the whole the putting people to sleep chamber things? Is that something that's even considered, or is that all science fiction?
I think that definitely is in the realm of science fiction.
Oh, so that's something that would never happen, where you're putting people in cryo, whatever that is, and and then they wake up. We're at Mars, then they could come out of the thing,
I mean, I feel like the most real medicine that we could apply for that is putting someone in a coma. For the 6 months.
So we're not even close to that being a real thing, of putting people in a thing that will suspended animation.
Right. You would need a lot of confidence in that procedure to put someone into a coma, wake them up in time for them to get ready for their mission. That it's not that it's impossible. It definitely is possible. But for our first Mars missions, I would be shocked.
Well, I guess my real question is, what I'm asking is that a technology that is actually being pursued?
I'm sure there's a team or two out there working on this, but I would say this would be smaller potatoes.
Because that'd be something that could be used even
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People would be using that. It'd be like, I want to go to sleep and then wake me up in 100 years. There'd be people wanting to do that, right? So that's a whole other can of worms.
Exactly.
Okay, so in terms of so you're saying that the first missions are going to be just flying to Mars, landing, taking off, getting some rock samples, all that stuff. Well, putting an American flag.
Although you are forced to stay a little bit because and by a little bit I mean months.
Oh, because we have to the whole straight line thing, or the little arc has to be lined up again for the Earth.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Earth and Mars align every 26 months. It takes about 9 months to get there. And it's 9 months to come back, and so you have a remainder of 8 months that you should probably do some good science on Mars. Take advantage of your time on there.
Now, are we able to survive for 8 months? Water, air, food, because isn't that the main? Those are the right. That's the three things there, and we have the technology to produce these things outside of Earth.
We have the technology. Whether you'd want to bring something that could do that, and it would fit inside the ship, that's probably unlikely right now. But what you would do though is, bring enough water and food for that mission with some contingency. As far as water goes, there are also methods that astronauts use currently to recycle their water in ways that we don't really do on Earth. For instance,
like what? Urine and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right. They actually drink their own urine in space. They purify it. They run it through many filters, but you are really using everything you bring up with you as much as you can, and we would certainly apply. Yeah, right. Being an astronaut is
so like in the Martian movie, he used the human boo boo to
make potatoes,
so that kind of stuff, right? That's what we're gonna have to end up doing.
I mean, that might be on the scrappy side, but
no shit, potatoes are coming in the near future,
right? But something along those lines is not out of.
Okay, but you still haven't really explained to me how. Well, how are we going to how are we going to have enough air? Like, is that going to be like a science thing where we're going to be creating the air? You know, like oxygen, hydrogen, whatever. How are we going to have enough air for 26 months to breathe? They're going to have 26 months to air, right?
Right, but keep in mind that you can also bring compressed air.
Okay.
Imagine like a scuba diver would have enough air for that person for hours. You can imagine that.
Well, how big is that tank going to be? A 26-month tank?
I mean, fair point. Large. I don't have that number offhand, but you're going to need to bring enough oxygen and water for your individuals. Not to say there won't be machines as well that will be recyclers and try to reuse. Oh, to the CO2, what we breathe out, and then turn that back into that kind of thing. You could dissociate the molecules to where you can use the oxygen.
Is there going to be a thing with there going to be plants in the ship to to create oxygen? You know what I mean? Like that whole.
Hard to say.
Oh, see, this is I just don't think the science. So what you're saying to me right now is that the science isn't there yet. Like we're not. It doesn't sound practical to go to Mars.
It isn't practical, but the people working on it know that, and
that's what they're trying to figure out.
Right, and they're not necessarily trying to make it practical right now. They're trying to make it plausible.
Plausible, okay, because it's just the air thing alone. It just sounds crazy to me. Yeah. Just like I don't know how you watch science fiction movies and you go, well, how does the Enterprise where does the air come from? Like, what do they do? There must be some air machine, they're creating it, whatever you might think that is. So, but like in real life, we're saying, oh yeah, we're gonna have to take enough water, but we can do the recycling, but there's still going to be like a big tank of water that has to go with them, right? And then we're going to have to take the food and the air. And I'm thinking that air part trips me out, like having to take, enough air for 26 months to Mars.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I'm sure they'll take lessons learned from the International Space Station. I'm not exactly sure how they do it up there.
Yeah, what do they do up there exactly?
I don't know the exact answer. But
is there like some like air run that every here comes the air? You know what I mean?
It's possible if they need compressed air especially for experiments, they probably would bring it with them.
Oh wow! What is it? Damn! What happened? This is gonna sound like a stupid question, but like, so what about farting in space? Like, is that gas used too? Are they recycling that, or is that a problem? If you're like in a space station and somebody farts, and that is like just what happens to that?
Right. I mean, so what that is, you're producing methane.
Yeah.
Primarily. Ironically, methane is the fuel used to propel our rockets to Mars.
Oh wow! So maybe when somebody it'd be great if there was like a tube, and every time somebody had to fart, you had to like do your part, and you have to fart into that tube, and the fart is sucked into a. Well, that would be a way, right? Let's say you're stuck. Let's say they're stuck, and we ran out of fuel. And it's like, so in this 8 months that they're there, everybody has to fart into this. That would be a way. I think there's some science in that.
We could have an extra millisecond of propulsion, sure.
Okay, you're telling me that if 8 astronauts farting for 8 months, that's science. That's not enough gas to get. You're saying that. Okay, I guess the question would be like, you nerds out there, whoever can figure it out, is how many farts would it take?
And we're gonna get some nice comments in the section for that one.
I just want to know like how much human methane would it take to propel a rocket?
Okay, yeah, I can tell you right now, it's gonna be a lot.
I love how like
exactly a lot.
I love how you're but you're taking the question serious, but half and half, like but you're like, but isn't there a part of you that's like, I wonder?
Of course, and I because
it's all science, right?
I mean, I know the number too. Like you need liters, like many liters, kiloliters even, to really have a big difference in your fuel supply.
Okay,
and
8 astronauts can't
fart
enough fuel to get from Mars to Earth.
Exactly.
If there was a fuel problem,
right? Don't expect it to save you. We learned one
that's so
thing
silly.
today.
All right, I want to
that-
go to your. I want to go to your
Sure.
3 pages of stuff just to see if I missed out on anything. I love how he has his background here. So, all right, so you model kits. That's how you started.
Yeah, I was a 6-year-old kid. My parents were kind of throwing little kits at me. They weren't really sure what would stick, but they could tell I was a STEM-oriented student: science, technology, engineering,
Right.
math. And I remember they gave me like a geology kit, and it was okay. I think I made it in a couple of days, and it was fun, but I wasn't like super into it.
Right.
My parents gave me an electric circuits kit, like working with batteries and wires and lights, and I liked that a little bit better. But I keep in mind I was 6 years old. I didn't really know how this stuff worked at the time, so it was tinkering. But then I remember my dad and I went to our local park, launched this little model rocket. And I was just like,
And you were like, "This is it."
6-year-old me was like, I don't know what I just saw, but I want to see that again.
Oh, that's dope. That's just a message out there to parents. Is like, give your kid a bunch of stuff until that one clicks.
Totally, no, for sure. Like,
Right.
yeah, and who knows what I would have been doing if I would have ultimately found this still, or I don't. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Wow. That's just my mom was sort of like that. She didn't give me like space stuff, but it was like, if she felt I was interested in something, she'd be like, "Okay, you want to do that? Let me look into it." Maybe you should take a class. Maybe you
Right.
should go over here and do that.
No, like exploration is super important. I feel like so many people, even into their adulthood, are still looking for what their passions are. And
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're still looking for their passions because obviously they haven't found it,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like, what do I really want to do? And it's just like explore, figure things out, right?
so I sometimes I wonder if I was fortunate that I had this inherent interest in aerospace, or automatically, and eventually I would have found it no matter what,
Right.
or really it was just essentially I had the right parents to realize
Chicken and the egg.
just throw things at you and see what sticks. Yeah.
Wow. What do you think it is as a scientist?
I mean, I love my parents, and they are amazing. And it's interesting because they don't come from a scientific or engineering background.
Mhm.
My dad's a writer, and my mom's a French teacher. So very humanities.
God, that's just the nerd house from heaven right here. Thanksgiving, right? It's just Thanksgiving dinner. I just want to hear the conversations at your Thanksgiving table.
Riveting.
Hilarious. Let me ask you something about your personality. Like, would you consider yourself socially awkward at all, or are you comfortable in social settings?
I think of myself as a pretty strong extrovert.
Yeah.
I do think I'm like, maybe how you describe like as like a nerd. Like I definitely enjoy telling stories that happen to be more academic, but I would like to think that I'm quite sociable and
Listen, I'm a nerd. Okay, I love talking about Star Trek, Star Wars. I'm a nerd about the things that I like, and I go into things about like Avengers Endgame, for instance.
Totally.
I'm a nerd where I go
Call of Duty.
I like playing Call of Duty. Yeah, I'm a nerd. But like Avengers Endgame, this is something that ruined the movie for me. Is that so Hawkeye in the beginning of the movie, his family disappears, and I'm like, oh, that happened in Wakanda in Africa. How is it daylight in both places?
Right.
See, I'm a nerd like that.
I like that.
Where I'm like, what's the time zone in Wakanda that this farm and wherever he is both daylight? You know what I mean? Like that's like a thing where I go, come on, filmmaker. So anyway, so I'm a nerd. So like nerd, when I say it fondly of you, like this shit. This is nerd shit right here. That you were like, you know what? I'm going on this podcast. Let me write 3 pages of like background for him. Like this is what I'm talking about. Like this is like I don't mean.
No, I love it. Yeah.
I don't mean like that kind of stuff. What I mean to say is like, you don't seem like you are unusual. With the way you're very open and like outgoing. So I guess that you've balanced the two. But I don't want to say you have an odd personality. That's not necessarily the word I would want to use.
And unique's kind of
Yeah.
overplayed.
Yes,
but,
yes. I wouldn't call it unique either, but it's like, like if you told me you had autism or you had like a slight,
you wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be like,
Interesting.
oh, that's what that is. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying that that's what it is.
Right.
But there is like a certain manner that you have, a certain like way of going about things that I just go like, is that inherent to people that go into science? And like, do you find it like, I'm sure there's a lot of like I don't want to say weirdos that you work with, but there are people that I'm sure that have quirks. You have quirks. I'm trying to like, I don't know how to say this. You're a quirky dude, but at the same time, you are still like a cool nerd. You're probably the most popular dude of all the nerds, like the nerd girls must love you. They're just like, oh, he's, because you got, you're like if a jock and a nerd combined in like The Fly. You know what I mean?
The Fly.
You know what I mean? Like, there was like a jock and a nerd inside the chamber, and then they get teleported, and you would combine. But like, so you've never had like any kind of social awkward interactions. Obviously, you have a mother and father that loved you greatly. They pushed you towards things. So I guess that's why you are so personable, I guess, right?
I mean, I think as far as academics go, I've found myself in a more academic setting for friends as well. So like, I feel like my own friend group feels like a lot of people like me.
Got you.
And
you're more comfortable with people that you can just, rattle off something about aerospace, and they're like, oh, I totally know what you mean.
Honestly, as long as the person's willing to listen, I'm great. In fact, I'm a huge storyteller, and I love teaching people. And I've taught classes before at my undergrad, and so as long as someone's willing to learn and listen, and be patient, I love that.
Yeah, I can tell you were really excited to be on this. Just like, I want to talk about stuff. Yeah, that's great, man. I just think that I hope that you do get to go to Mars. I really do, because it's just such a strange. Like we're in a time right now that people are afraid of technology. We haven't accepted it yet. Like the self-driving cars. Like, I think the thing that's holding us back from self-driving cars is our own fear and ignorance of the technology. Because if we embraced it more, then we'd be like, okay, it's because it's going to happen. There's going to be a time when no one's going to be driving anymore. Do you think that?
I do. I think in our own lifetime.
I think so too. I think like 10 years, it's going to be all electric hydrogen cars. We're not going to be we're not even going to have to get out of the car. It's going to be like a little robot. It's going to be putting into your car, fill you up, and you're gone. With little cabins and stuff like that.
I mean, to your point also about the uncertainty about the future of autonomous vehicles. Look at Tesla's stock. Like, the thing is super wild. And of course, part of that is because the goals are very ambitious and they're not too sure what the future may bring of that specific company. Still, there are a lot of opinions that go into the future of autonomous vehicles, and that is very much shown in the price doing this.
Yeah. But then the infrastructure isn't necessarily in place yet to... Like for instance, hydrogen vehicles. Like, we easily could go all hydrogen already, but we just don't have the infrastructure in place. It's just gas stations are everywhere. Like, we don't. Yeah. People are. But isn't there like some kind of, like, even with electric cars, there's some new phobia now that is. I don't know what it's called. I'm sure it has a name. You know what I'm talking about? How people think their car's gonna. They're so scared that their car's gonna run out of electricity that they're fearful. Whatever. There's a new phobia. So we're creating.
Oh, and I love the videos on YouTube of people of the older generation stepping into their grandkids' Tesla and just going like, "What is this spaceship that I'm in?"
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. It's just amazing that we haven't already gone all electric or whatever kind of technology gone away from the.
I will say though, this year we've seen almost every major car company realize that electric is the future.
This is where we're going.
It's where we're going.
Yeah.
And I think, where was it? Somewhere in Europe, there was a major car show, and it was apparent that everyone's trying to find the new Model S.
Right. Right. So what do you like? What's what's your hobbies? I mean, are you a nerd guy in terms of comic books, movies? Are you excited about the new Star Wars? When you okay, look, as a comic or somebody that's in the entertainment business, when I watch a movie, if I'm not really interested in the movie, I find myself like looking at the lighting or that joke didn't play. Like when you go watch Star Wars, are you always like, that's not possible? Well, that's bullshit. That's never gonna. There's no light speed, or can you just enjoy it? Can you suspend your disbelief?
It's funny. Like, if the movie is trying to take themselves seriously and tries to pretend the physics is perfect, that's when I think I'll be like talking to my neighbor.
Oh, because you go with your nerd friends and you guys are just in the theater
exactly.
Look at this. Just ruining it for everybody.
But there are movies like Ad Astra that just came out, and they don't pretend like the physics is perfect. They're going into it for the thrill of another space movie,
right,
but also trying to entertain and realize that this is coming out of Hollywood. And Brad Pitt's character isn't trying to be like Mark Watney.
Right.
It's I haven't seen the movie yet, but I really want to see it. It's I'm excited because I like it because you can go into it even if you know the physics. You can go into it ready to be entertained, not trying to critique.
But even with your answer, you critique. I could tell that you're in Star Wars, being like, come on, guys. Is light speed even possible?
For humans, probably not.
And why is that?
The amount of energy that would take something of our mass to accelerate to light speed would be insane.
So we'd be crushed in the process. Like we wouldn't even be able to survive inside the thing.
If you're accelerated slowly enough, you could do it. You physically could do it. We would see huge changes to our physiology. You shrink the faster you go.
Oh, wow.
And time would change relative to an observer, which is kind of wild.
Oh, like that movie. Did you like, what was that one with Matthew McConaughey? Interstellar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see that one? It was like, oh, this science is so... Was that science close to like, you were like, oh, they're doing this right?
I mean, I think most
except for the end when it was all like, that was just science fiction, that part. But
right.
I talk about the travel, like where 1 minute here is like 20 years someplace else. Was all that accurate?
I think this practically this would be well beyond our lifetimes. But like the idea of a creation of a wormhole and to get us into a different universe or to a different galaxy, even these are things that are theoretically possible, but whether humans will ever be able to do that, I don't know.
I love like you're so smug about it. You know what I mean? You're just like these people. You're like, guys, it's never gonna happen. Like, stop it. That would be, I actually want to come to a movie with you and your friends.
Let's go see Ad Astra.
But I want to sit in the back of you guys and just watch you guys. Just this is like,
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, or just I want to take notes and feel how like so. But anyways, you do love science fiction movies.
Absolutely.
You're going.
But as far as like hobbies you bring up,
yeah.
I think my pastimes wouldn't be focused in the movie theater.
Or whatever they are. I'm just saying,
I'm a big time adventure, honestly. I'm a little bit of a adrenaline junkie.
Oh wow, you want to skydive and all that kind of stuff.
And I have skydived.
You want to go to space, man. What are you talking about? That's already an adrenaline
right.
junkie. You want to be a 40-year-old going to Mars. You sound like a crazy person if you think about it like that.
Yeah, and so you can imagine the people with the quote right stuff, right, are people that are doing these high adrenaline things down here on Earth and really preparing themselves for that kind of high adrenaline mission.
You want to rock climb and things like that?
Yeah, and I'm a pilot, so I fly little planes out here out of Santa Monica.
Oh, that's right, because you have to be a pilot. Jesus, look at you.
So I'm probably about now we're a couple months, maybe even a month away from getting my pilot's license.
Then you could just fly on your own.
Yep. And I have flown alone a few times. I flew to San Diego. I've flown to Malibu.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it would just be disappointing if you just ended up like as a Delta Airlines pilot.
It won't happen.
You're like 47 and you're like, welcome to Delta. Thank you for flying. You have many choices in your airline.
I'll leave that to you.
Oh, you think I'm already in my 40s. I'm supposed to be ready to go to Mars.
That's right. Let's go.
How disappointed would you be if you saw me? Like, I'm going to Mars. Like right now, like there's some secret, company, the Amazon guy has been secretly building a fucking space thing, and he's just like taking volunteers.
I would love it. I would like, I can't believe I got to meet the guy who went to Mars.
You know what? That's something I do like about you. You have a very positive outlook on things. I do find you to be a very personable person. I didn't mean to insult you or anything like that about you just have like a very different personality.
Thanks.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I can't. And what it is I can't put my finger on it.
Sure.
As I think about it more, what it is like you actually don't fall into any of the stereotypes. So it's like I want you to. It's like I want you to just be a nerd. And you're like, no, I wear hoodies and I got a beard. And I rock climb and I parachute and I fly a plane, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't have all of this. You're like, you're like the evolution. You're like a millennial nerd. This is great. You're around Logan Paul, and you're. I'm like, who is this guy? But it's great stuff, man. I look forward to see what's going on in your future. I can't believe how long we've been talking about this stuff. I hope people find this interesting, because I found it interesting. That's why you're my first non-entertainment guest, by the way.
First, and hopefully not last.
Yeah, I want to, because I needed to open this up, because of the things that I find interesting. And I just found you to be so interesting when you were talking about the Mars. You were so into it. I was like, oh, this guy's actually, you're going to get, I fully believe 100% that you're going to get to Mars, man.
I love it.
You're going to get to Mars. And, so this is like for you kids out there, dream big, right?
Absolutely. No, don't let your 6-year-old dreams just come to an end.
Ooh, I love that. That should be a t-shirt.
Yeah. And of course, like, we all need to be realistic, right? Like, there's like my brother's preschool. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when he was in preschool, one of the funniest things was a girl in his class. They were going around saying what they wanted to be when they grew up, and a girl said she wanted to be an elephant. And so it's like
is she a fat girl? Like, what's happening?
To be fair, I don't know. But
maybe she succeeded.
Yeah, we haven't checked, but I have doubts. But those kind of things, right? Like, you also want to check yourself at some point.
Gotcha.
But if you find yourself being,
how do you manage your expectations then for yourself?
I try to set goals for myself with enough time in advance to where I think I can, with the proper preparation, reach them or get close. Right.
But there has to be a certain amount of arrogance that you have to have, and confidence in yourself, right?
Confidence, at least.
But I mean, I just don't think anybody's great at anything without having a
you need to believe in yourself.
Yeah, there has
Absolutely.
to be. Yeah. So like, are you like, what does your brother do? Like, are you like the one that's like, you're the nerd, smart guy, you're going to NASA and SpaceX, and he's like, what's he doing?
I mean, he's amazing in his own way. He's more of a salesman, actually. He has skills that I don't have. Like, he can get someone to buy a watch off his wrist, whereas I would have a big trouble kind of doing that. And he actually found a place on YouTube when he was a teenager. I never really put much effort into that.
Oh wow. Okay, so that's great. And you close?
Getting closer. I think to be fair,
you said your whole childhood right now. I see it in front of me right now. That I can see you guys were complete opposites. Was he the bully brother? Then you guys, as you get older, you kind of put that childhood stuff behind, and now you're like seeing each other for for what you guys offer to each other now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took us to be adults to really be able to be like much closer. You're right though. We were very different interests growing up, and here I am trying to explain physics. And if someone doesn't want to hear physics, that's not going to go very far.
Oh, and that must have been frustrating.
Yeah, and then I just find friends that I can.
You had to find, you had to.
And then we're back full circle to the nerds.
And that's how you ended up with your nerd circle. That's no, that's great, man. That's you know what? I feel like there's gonna be movies made about you.
That'd be sweet.
Right?
I mean, you're already doing that.
Yeah, but I'm not. I mean, it's not about me. You know what I mean? Like, who would play you? Who would you want to play you?
Oh my gosh. It's funny. There is there's an actor named Alexander Gould, and he does look like me, or I look like him. I'm not sure. He and I are about the same age. He's the guy. He was the voice of Nemo. I believe.
Oh, really?
I believe.
I don't know who that is. I have to look that up.
I think he was like 7 years old when he did this, and he and I, as 7-year-olds, look identical.
Oh, wow.
And then, sure enough, growing up, maybe up until age like 20, we were like the same person. I actually had a friend in high school.
I'm gonna have to put that up. I'm gonna have to like
Alexander Gould, by the way.
Yeah.
And
I think to put that up right there.
He never really grew any facial hair, so now we don't look so similar.
Right.
But he's my doppelganger.
Okay, I was trying to stop, but you keep making me want to ask more questions. When did you come into your coolness? You know, there's a part
Describe
of you
that.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's a I guess it's like, when was the moment that you became completely comfortable with yourself?
Okay, I think getting a little bit more deep. I was obese as a child.
Oh, see, here we go.
And I ended up going through some sort of a body transformation when I was 9 years old, very young, and I essentially was the fat kid at school and picked on, and so I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for people in that situation.
People getting bullied and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So then when did you make the transformation that you were like, no, I'm going to take control of my life and I'm just going to,
I mean, I was really young.
So you knew at a young age, you were like, oh, fuck this fat shit. I'm tired of this, right?
I think it took me to figure out, kind of going back to my favorite things, science. Once I figured out that being overweight was unhealthy for me, I was like,
and there it is. Yeah, so it had nothing to do with anything other than like, oh, this is actually unhealthy. Dude, I'm trying to get healthy right now because
you've been
of that.
looking good though.
I'm working on it, and it's because of what's going on with my mom, and I just thought I started looking like, oh, this is what leads to dementia and things like that. Just inflammation and all these kinds of things. And I was like, oh, I need to start taking care of that. But it's like the science of it. Like this whole thing about, feel good about what you look like is like, no. Take it from the scientist. When he was 10 years old, he was like, oh, looking at the science like, oh, you know what? This isn't healthy. I probably need to change this. Right. That's the message that we should be giving kids and young people. You know what I mean? This pisses me off, man. Well, good for you. But you should have opened with this kind of stuff. This is like, so you're telling me at like 10, 11 years old, you were like, you made the change. You walked into your parents' house and was like, we're vegan.
I'm not Spencer Taylor.
Yeah, that bastard Spencer. He's like, yeah.
Oh, he's like a friend of mine.
Yeah. Well, he's still a bastard with his veganism. So then you changed your diet. Like, what did you do?
Right.
That must have been good. Like, how did your parents handle that when you came and did you walk in and be like, hey, we're gonna change all this. So let's start getting some get the sugar out of here. No more soda. How did you do it?
Yeah, you can imagine it's tough for a 9-year-old to change their parents' minds.
Right.
What's in the kitchen. But I looked online and probably made the most naive search you could possibly make: how to lose weight, right? Like, that's probably been Googled by everyone ever,
right?
And for me, I figured out that okay, I need to reduce my calories, I reduce my fat, and I probably should measure things. And so I actually I figured out some caloric intake that I should be eating. As a 9-year-old kid, I was eating 1,400 plus or minus 100 calories every day.
Right.
And I was running, and I went from essentially, being the slowest person in my PE class, running a 15-minute mile, pretty much walking pace.
Yeah.
To just right around 7 minutes, one of the fastest.
Damn, dude, what you're talking about right now, because the science shit, it's already amazing. What you're talking about right now, it's equally amazing. What you're saying.
Thanks.
You're telling me at 9 years old, you were like, oh, I don't like this anymore. And you Googled, how do I lose weight? And you were like, oh, you know what? I'm eating too many calories.
Right.
I'm eating too much fat. I should probably change that. And you changed your life. Hey, you fat fucks out there. Hey, you people with your bullshit about body shaming and all this kind of stuff. This is how we're going to change the world right here. Science. Wow.
Yeah, I went from so I'm relatively light. I weigh 138 pounds.
I know I hate you.
But it was from hard work, right? Like I was 134 pounds when I was 9 years old. So I'm only 4 pounds heavier now than I was at 9.
Damn, you was a big motherfucker.
I was a big boy.
Right. That's wow.
And I dropped from 134 to about 89 pounds.
Okay, but you still were, even when you were skinny though, for a few years, you were still a fat kid in here.
You're absolutely right. No,
right. So when did you not, so getting back to my original question, and then we'll get the hell out of here, is that when did you become comfortable with yourself?
It took until, ironically, probably the worst time for most people in their childhood, but early middle school was when I really felt
How old were you?
12.
12. Man, you're definitely going to Mars.
For me, it was in my personal case, it was a new set of friends. I was new middle school. I really didn't know that many people.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to be, no one knew me as the fat kid, right? I was able to essentially get a fresh slate, and I was able to, really, use that to make better friends.
Good for you, man. That is amazing right there. You just like you at 12, you were like, okay, so now I want to hang out with people like me.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, let me find these people. And you found them, and then here you are. Nurture versus nature, right? Mm-hmm. You were self-made from 9 years old. Actually 6. From 6 years old, you're a self-made man.
That was for my parents.
Yeah, but I'm saying they good for them.
Yeah.
Because you said they're not into science or anything. They were like, here, try this. And they were like, oh, we did it. There we go. Good parenting, solid family background. Look at you. You're a decent human being. I can tell. I really appreciated that about you. And I appreciate you coming on. This is like my little experiment.
Thanks for having me
right
on.
Now. No, dude, I from the moment I met you, I was like, oh, this guy's interesting. And so I hope you guys found this interesting. And if you didn't, I really don't care, because I found it interesting. And it's my show.
Time.
Yeah, we had a really good time. And, as other big things happen, I'd love for you to come back and be like my science segment. You know what I mean? Yeah. We could do this again. Or even if you have some other nerds that you want to.
That's right. I'll throw your way.
Yeah, throw me some nerds, man. But this is good. Everybody, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm going to have all his information so you can follow his career. You're on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, right? Don't worry, I'll have it all.
Awesome.
Dylan Dickstein. That must have been hard, too, having Dickstein as your name.
Fortunately, I was already in
When did you get comfortable with that?
Yeah. So I think the key for that, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, make fun of it first.
Bro, in closing, I have a big nose, okay? Yeah, well, because I'm fatter now, but my nose was this size at 10. Okay, so like that was the thing. My whole childhood was like, you got a big nose. No matter what school I went to, I was waiting for it. Oh, big nose. So it was crushing until I got to high school, and I'll never forget it. I was in the parking lot with my friends, and like somebody was going on my nose, and then I made fun of myself.
The self-deprecation wins.
And then I made fun of I remember saying something like, oh yeah, my nose is, and I can smell how stinky you are.
Oh,
you know
nice.
what I mean? And it was just like a whole thing. And it was the last time it bothered me. It was literally the last time I was like, oh, this really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So you figured, you're probably 13, like, okay, yeah, Dick is in my name.
Exactly.
You're like, okay, guys, that doesn't hurt me anymore.
Right.
Man, you're just a model citizen right now. Dylan Dickstein, everybody. All his information will be below. Future astronaut, current astronaut. Would you call yourself an astronaut yet?
Prospective
astronaut, wants to go to Mars in 15 to 20 years. He's been on Riffin with Griffin. And please subscribe and share. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you guys next week.